I was born into this alcoholic family, um, and they almost killed me because they went on a 3-day binge. Um, and I was the youngest surviving baby. I believe there was a baby. I don't know because you know, I didn't know what was happening wrong with that much. I was just a baby. But I was told that there was another baby and he died. And then I was the next in line, and Ron, the next one older than me, um, evidently they left us with a jar of peanut butter. And let's see, I think I had 7 brothers. So I would be 8, and there would be a baby younger than me, 9, with a jar of peanut butter. So I'm laying in bed and I'm ready to get up, and it's almost like the Spirit is speaking to me saying, don't go back to the Lutheran church. That's not feeding you. Go somewhere in the neighborhood. So what do? I get in the car and go back to the Lutheran church. Well, the same thing happens the very next week. So this time I decide, okay. So I walk down the block, and the first church I can come to is the Seventh-day Adventist. And well, I had known nothing about them, so I'm not going in there. The next church I get to is a Lutheran church. Well, I wasn't getting anything out of the last one, so I'm not going to go into this one. And then I go into this next church that I come to, and it's a Baptist church. And then the neighborhood changed. And as I look back on it, it was the best thing for my kids. Because one of the things that I think is the problem with racial tension, and it's not just black and white, it's whatever. Because we don't look at the person for a person. We look at them as black, Spanish, or whatever, and they're not a person. And when you live beside people, you wind up realizing you're a person, you know? And so my kids grew up with no problem about racial problems.
Welcome to the Common Ground Podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground Podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Common Ground Podcast. Yes, that is right. It is your boy. It is Philly. It is John in the house, as always. And as always, I bring the extravagant, the magnificent, the don't you put me in a corner, Sydney. And I have Sydney with me always.
How's it going, Philly?
I'm doing fantastic. Sydney, what do you call an illegally parked frog?
An illegally parked frog.
Yes.
I don't know.
Toad.
Okay, all right. That was like right in my face.
And sorry, this past weekend I heard that they arrested the devil.
Did they?
They caught him on possession.
Oh boy.
As always, you can say which dad joke you like best, or neither, or rank them 1 to 10. And if you don't like mine, you can always send in yours. So feel free to send in your dad jokes. We appreciate them, and we would love to give you credit for a dad joke
Well,
that you
I
provide.
have one.
Good.
All right, I kinda was prepared
We
for this.
have to give it to him
Yes.
in light of who we're with today.
Did you hear about the guy who went into the police district and stole all the toilets?
No.
Well, of course they nabbed him. I mean, coming out with all those toilets. But they couldn't arrest him. You know why?
Why?
They had nothing to go on.
Okay. All right. Let us know what your favorite dad joke is in the comments.
Who had the better dad joke? You can let us know. And that's going to bring us to this episode. I'm truly excited for this episode. Today we have with us somebody who we ask the final 5 questions, right? Every episode, and one of the questions is, who is your hero and why, right? So this would probably be one of my answers to this question. And so that's why I'm excited, because my hero is my father. And so today he has graciously accepted the invitation to come on and be our guest today. My father was born in 1950. He has a really powerful story, and I don't want to steal a lot of the thunder, because I know we're going to get into a lot of stuff that he went through. But he was in foster care, eventually adopted, married my mom, had 3, I'm going to say, amazing boys, since I'm one of them, and lost his wife to cancer, and has remarried, but has been a really an example of how to navigate this world, and has always shown me, I guess, that you don't have to be loud, you don't have to be boisterous to be heard. Um, that relationships matter, that people matter, and I think that rubs off on why I do what I do here. Um, so it is with absolute pleasure that I get to introduce to you my father, Mr. Albert Fletcher.
Welcome, Albert. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, welcome there, Sydney. And
Nice to finally meet you again. We've heard lots of things. You come up lots in conversation, I'll tell you.
what can I say?
Well, so Albert, tell our viewers where you're calling in from.
I'm calling in from Philly. And so, yeah.
And how long have you lived there?
I was born here, raised here. I even have my cemetery plot here. So I ain't gone anywhere. My bones aren't even going anywhere.
Oh boy. Very good. And you have 3 sons. So I have
Yes,
the
I do.
pleasure of knowing one of them. Tell me, where does John fall in the birth order?
Well, he's the first one.
He's the oldest.
And probably it's his fault that he has siblings, because he was such a good baby. You could put him right down and give him a little box, and you could walk out of the room and he'd still be there when he came back. Wasn't
Oh,
noisy. And matter of fact, we were noisy. We actually went when he was first born. We lived in an apartment, and we had one of those crank swings. It go, and then it would rock, and he'd be asleep, and then it would stop, and I had to rank it again, and then he'd go fall back to sleep. Uh, I'm a like a rock music person, so
Mhm.
I'm blasting my rock music here. Didn't bother them.
I think that it's true, it's how you train these little ones. Because 'cause I've got 3 kiddos too, and I was very delicate with my girl, like, my first girl that I got to raise in my home. I just felt like I tiptoed around while she was sleeping, and my son's dad was like, "No, like, we're gonna continue to live and the baby will adjust," and I mean, you could vacuum and clean that boy's room, lights on, windows open with music playing, and he would sleep right through it.
Well, that's not what
Will
the
say
other two.
no, 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 no. I will say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And as much as he wants to say the other 2 isn't true, I remember us waking up one morning and finding out that the previous night, our dog was barking so loud at the window, and none of us woke up. None of us
Oh,
The
no.
fire department came down the street, shined those big white lights into
Yep.
our house, and none of us woke up.
Oh my goodness.
There
That's a
was
safety
policemen
hazard.
there was policemen at the door, evidently didn't break down the door because there was no,
Signs of trouble or something?
signs of smoke or fire or anything,
Yeah.
but we slept it like the whole neighborhood was out, but our whole family was asleep.
Yeah, that's a safety hazard. We gotta what wakes you up?
Well, it was in the summer and the air conditioner was running, so, you know, didn't hear
Oh, okay.
anything.
Alright, well, that makes a little more sense, I guess. That's pretty funny.
But I do remember that. Oh gosh. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't knock down the door.
So, what do you attribute to who you are and what you've become? Because as I described you in the introduction, I do find that that's kind of unique and especially in today's society where everybody wants to be loud and boisterous and they want to be heard and they want to be at the forefront, that you really try to lean on common sense, on logic, on where do you get that from? Where do you find your peace? Where do you find um just how you navigate life?
It happened later in life. I didn't have that when I was young, definitely. And it happened um, after I came to faith in Christ, really. Uh, Things started to come together for me. And I have done so many things that I would not have done because of my faith. And for instance, I mean, I actually did a solo in church, the very first time ever. Um, and what happened to me was I felt that God had my back, so I could, if there was a door that opened, uh, I figured I could go through it because if it was the wrong door, I've gone through plenty of wrong doors, and God had my back, so I expected Him to have it again. I may get singed because of it, but that's okay. Um, but if I went through it, I was going to experience something and more with God. And so I've done things that I never would have done. I don't know if it's one of those. Who's that guy? When you were in youth group, um, I used to play some DVDs. Um, I can't
Okay.
remember his name. He was a professor from.
Campolo?
Yes, but it was his father, not Bart.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
He used to preach things, and what I think I got it from him, uh, where he's talking about we're afraid to do things because we don't step out, you know?
Tony. His name was
Yeah,
Tony
Tony
Campolo.
Campolo. And so that's one of the things I've done. Um, I I actually prayed for wisdom. I still don't see I'm the wisest person around, but um, I surprise myself when I say some things, and I think that's from God.
Well, your story starts in a way that I think that is is part of what makes your testimony pretty profound. And I want to rewind to that stage of life because there's a lot of juveniles now, whether they're with their family or in a foster care system or have been placed, that would allow some of the things that you have been through to justify character in a negative way rather than how you've chosen to use your testimony. I want to know a little bit about that story growing up and if you were even exposed to faith throughout that. Would you share some of that early childhood experience?
And yeah, and thinking back now, of course, when I was going through a lot of that, I wasn't putting things together. Um, After I came to Christ, I realized that God was with me in the very beginning
Right.
before I sought Him out or whatever. Um, I was born into this alcoholic family, um, and they almost killed me because they went on a 3-day binge. Um, and I was the youngest surviving baby. I believe there was a baby. I don't know because you know, I didn't know what was happening around me that much. I was just a baby. But I was told that there was another baby and he died. And then I was the next in line, and Ron, the next one older than me, um, evidently they left us with a jar of peanut butter. And let's see, I think I had 7 brothers. So I would be 8, and there would be a baby younger than me, 9, with a jar of peanut butter. I can imagine I was in the grip because since I was either 1 or younger then, um, I guess Ron was able to get out, but for some reason, um, they, when the city came to get us, they gave Ron and I 6 months to live. That's how malnutrition they were. I was sick until I was sick. And that was because they finally found out that my tonsils were bad. Probably my tonsils got, you know, really damaged all through this. Um, my mom, who I call my mom, is the one who mothered me. uh, and when I refer to my uh, bio, I'll call my biological mom or dad. Okay, um, because I don't consider them my parents. Um, and so um, she came and rescued me. Uh, and I see that as God taking me from this terrible situation and putting me into this foster care. The other thing, it's very rare in foster care if you stay in one home. I did. Uh, Ron was my next older brother, and Ted was the next one older than him. Those two went together to a family, which I found that this is interesting. Um, because they went to a family that were Quakers, and then they wanted to adopt them. And as soon as the agency found out they wanted to adopt them, they took them out of the home because the biological parents didn't want that. Um, Nancy's the next one younger to me. She came later, but they took her out of the home. I guess they still felt at that time they weren't safe. Um, she still had a boy and twins after that, which they didn't take out. So I don't understand all the ramifications of why they did and what they did, but the four of us were taken out of the family. Well, actually, there was a fifth one, and he was Jimmy, which I didn't know that much because I didn't grow up with him. Uh, but he evidently, wherever they placed him, he ran away and back to his parents. And I guess he was used to that, and that's what he wanted.
Yeah, there's the foster care comment you made. It's more common for young kids to get placed in one home and stay there and go on to be adopted than it is for the older kids. It's much more common that those ones will jump
Yeah.
around from home to home. So,
But
But you also
Nancy wound up in two homes too, because again, the same thing.
sure,
The original family wanted to adopt them. As soon as they found it
right.
out, they ripped them out in another place.
Yeah.
but even though you had biological brothers and sisters biologically, you actually did have a sister in your foster care home, though.
Yes, and that was and she was from another alcoholic family. She came when she was 4. I don't know how many. I know she was bounced around to different houses, and when she came well, yeah, I'll call it my house because it was my house growing up. Um, she was very angry, and she broke a lot of my toys. I was not happy with her. And
And she was older than you then?
no, she wound up she was 6 months older than me. Okay, so she was older.
Right. Sure.
Um,
That's a pretty wild start to life. Did you at any point reconnect with your biological siblings?
well, that happened, I guess, when I was 6, because actually I didn't know my parents weren't my biological parents. I found out when the agency came and said the biological parents going to see you,
Mm,
and they had to see if they were going to keep a little hold on us. If not, um, my parents could have adopted me. But by them seeing us, so I remember a little bit about it. Um, I know I didn't like it. I went screaming at first because I was comfortable where I was at. And I didn't want to be taken out of that. That was a threat to me. And so I even have a picture of my mother being ugly. And I think the ugliness was my perception of the danger she put me in.
mm, yeah.
So
But
yeah,
you said that they prevented you from being adopted, but you are adopted by your foster parents,
yeah.
correct?
When me and my sister were 37, we went to family court, and the judge says, "What are you doing here? This is family court." And what happened was my father had gotten um, prostate cancer, and he was dying. And so we decided that we were going to take on his name. Now, I have to back up a little bit. When both me and my sister became of age, 21, um, we could have gotten adopted at that point. But we decided not to because we saw our parents as our parents. So we didn't
Hmm.
need a piece of paper for it. And then the other part was we already had our Social Security, our driver's license, and all those
Right.
things.
Yeah.
And everybody knew us as Fletcher, and she was from a family called Brown. So
Sure.
my mom, so where I lived it with was McFarland's. So my mom got called everything. uh, but we decided not to do it just for that reason. So then we go and we say, okay, we're going to do this because my dad's dying. And the judge says, oh yeah, basically the only thing that gets changed is back in Harrisburg, which is the state capital. Um, they will put on your birth
Your new, yeah, your adopted parents.
certificate. I'm not drinking.
No, that's okay.
They'll put on the certificate Fletcher dash McFarland, and for my sister Brown dash McFarland.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to change anything else.
Well, that's
And we
handy.
said, if we knew that, we would have done it when we were 21.
Right, right. Yeah, no kidding. So Fletcher then is your biological last name, but the
Yes,
last name of your biological
yes,
parents.
yes.
Okay. I have a similar story in that regard. I get that. That's actually why Nicole is my middle name on the screen, because I just didn't know what last name to go by anymore. My dad was adopted, but never knew who his biological dad was. And so I grew up with the last name Johnston. But then we found out that his biological dad may have been somebody with the last name Petz, Petz, which is a very German last name, and that is in his lineage. But he had passed away before a test could be done, and there were some other people that were supposedly like could have been his dad. And so I just was like, I'm just gonna go by my middle name. I don't know what to do anymore.
Okay. Well, I got to meet both my mother and my father. My father only came to these meetings, I think, twice that I can remember. And, and like I had no feelings when I found out they died because they meant nothing to me. Uh,
Yeah. When the parents that raised you, your mom and dad, did they have a foundation of faith growing up?
no, not really. Um, my mom came from, I think she was raised Methodist.
Okay.
Uh, my dad, what I heard, um, he was from a poor family. And when he went into church, they evidently ridiculed him. So church was the last place that he wanted to go. Um, he believed in God, but we never had a Bible. Um, there was nothing but God. The exception, and this is interesting, is I went to Sunday school with the neighbors from the next street over. Their back of their houses faced the back of our houses. And so I know I first went to some Presbyterian church, and then for some reason they switched over to a Lutheran church. Uh, when I got older, I um, went to the church services. So uh, that was about the religious t- upbringing that I had.
Although you have a very interesting story on finding the church that I grew up in and how you ended up there. And I know we're going forward a little bit because we didn't talk about you marrying, my mom and stuff like that. But since we're talking about faith, I believe you weren't going to any church when this happened. You
No, no,
really
no,
didn't have any, or
no.
were
We
you?
were going to the Lutheran church,
You
and
were going
we
to
were
Lutheran church.
getting absolutely nothing. We went there because it's my his mom grew up Catholic. Um, and actually, we got to back up a little bit more. What happened was in the 70s there was this, and I don't know if you know about this. There was this program that was called I Found It, Do you remember seeing it at all? Well, it was on billboards, it was on the TV and everything. And basically it was nationwide as far as I know. And they would, if anybody got contacted, they would, whatever church that they had within the network, they would just contact them. So this Baptist church, not the Lutheran church, the Baptist church in the same area, came out to my mom and said, would you like to come out to basically a Sunday school? And so she calls up uh, her his dad, his mother, and says, "I'm not going to get." She tells him about it. She says, "I'm not going to go unless you go with me." So his mom goes with my mom. They go to Sunday school. She winds out coming to faith because of it, and it was one of these 10 steps to becoming a Christian. I'm glad I didn't had any participation in that. That would have been the last thing that I wanted to go to.
Sure.
But she kept on saying, "Oh, I would have interesting questions. I should go. I should go." And then finally, I gave in. But it was just at the time that they decided to switch from that to a study in Romans. And Romans is actually what did me. Nobody had to say anything else. Uh, just the first chapter did me in, and I said, "Okay, I need Jesus." Well, we weren't living in that neighborhood, and this is why I had to go there. Uh, and so we were going to this Lutheran church, and we were getting nothing out of it. And so um, I was ready to go back to this church one day. I'm living in this another area called Hunting Park. It's a poorer section of the city, and because actually we bought the house that we bought through FHA. I I put $500 down on it. Yeah. You know, so and I forget what the monthly mortgage was. It was ridiculously low.
I probably would be really sad to hear it based on what mine is.
Yeah. Oh,
Don't-
now forget it. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so I'm laying in bed and I'm ready to get up, and it's almost like the Spirit is speaking to me and saying, "Don't go back to the Lutheran church. That's not feeding you. Go somewhere in the neighborhood." So what do? I get in the car and go back to the Lutheran church. Well, the same thing happens the very next week. So this time I decide, okay. So I walk down the block, and the first church I can come to is the Seventh-day Adventist. And well, I had known nothing about them, so I'm not going in there. The next church I get to is a Lutheran church. Well, I wasn't getting anything out of the last one, so I'm not going to go into this one. And then I go into um, this next church that I come to, and it's a Baptist church. But when I go in, there's a black lady going in front of me. So my perception of this church is that it's a black gospel Baptist church.
Southern Baptist. Yeah.
It's not. She was the only member that was black in the church, but there was another young guy, black guy, in there that I took notice of, and it was it was a sermon that did me in, and so I leave. Well, the sermon was about Ephesians 5 and what the husbands was supposed to do in Ephesians 5. Uh, so anyway, I leave, and this guy is right in front of me, and he's walking the same direction I am to go home. And so I kind of skip up to him and I say, "Oh man, that sermon did me in." and I got to talk to my wife about it. And he says, well, I wish I could. I'm in the middle of a divorce. I thought, oh, geez. And so anyway, I go home and I say, her name is Zev. And I say, brother, you got to sit down. I got to talk to you. And so um, she sits down and I tell her all the different things that I'm not doing right as a husband that I'm going to work on. And I'm listing them. And as I'm listing them, her jaw is just dropping. She has no idea what to do with this. Uh, so eventually I dragged her into church with me. Is that the part you remember?
Oh no, it was the waking up part. I remember you talking about a heaviness and that you felt like you couldn't move or something.
Yeah, yeah. When I tried to get up, it felt like there was a force that was keeping me down. It was really strange.
And it
And
ended up being the church that had a tremendous impact on our whole family.
yeah,
So,
That's pretty cool.
and that's where I fell in love with youth ministry. It's where I became a Christian. It's a lot of my roots.
I was thinking about there was this young rap group from Philadelphia. It's called CYD, and I met them at the pastor led me to go to this youth ministry leaders conference. So I went, and these guys were playing. And this lady comes up to me who I knew a little bit from my days working at Gerard Bank. And this would have probably been about 10 years down the road. She recognized me. I didn't recognize her. Well, the drummer of this rap group was her son, right? And the rap group was just this guy called Sid, CY, that was what it was, CYD, but they called it Can You Deal? Um, and there was this song they did um, off of Psalm 23. Well, John memorized it, and he would be rapping around the church in our house with
John, would
this.
you rap that for us real quick?
Yes, yes.
Do you want to give us a solo?
I don't remember the words to it, but I do
That's
remember. I
Psalm
do remember.
23.
He doesn't remember the flow.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember the flow.
That's funny. I thought we were going to get a solo out of John today.
Yeah, so solo, you couldn't hear me. It's done. So talk about growing up in Hunting Park. Well, talk about how Hunting Park shaped your life growing up.
Well,
Well,
what I was really, and I didn't plan this all out. This just happened that we were living in apartments, and his mom saw this house, and you know, it's something that we could possibly do. So we looked into it, and we wound up buying the house. When we first got there, it was predominantly white, uh, but it quickly changed.
predominantly German, right?
No, no, it wasn't even that. The neighborhood was German at one time. When we moved in, that wasn't the case. Um, and it was interesting. On the one side, the one neighbor was a German, but when we first moved in, they weren't there for a year. They were somewhere else, but they owned this house. Um, and on the other side of us were Italians, and it they the wife never really learned English well at all, and the husband at first took a long time just because of the accent that he had. But we got along really well with them. Actually, we got along well with both of them, except for the incident with Rocky there. But we don't need to discuss that. That's going down another rabbit hole. Um, and so, and then the neighborhood changed. And as I look back on it, it was the best thing for my kids because one of the things that I think is the problem with racial tensions, and it's not just black and white, um, it's whatever, um, uh, because um, we don't look at the person for a person. We look at them as black, uh, Spanish, or whatever, and they're not a person. And when you live beside people, you wind up realizing you're a person, you know? And so my kids grew up with no problem about um, racial problems. As a matter of fact, Sam really scolded his uncle one time because he made some racial remark. And he put him in his place, and his uncle thanked him for it.
That's
You know?
sweet.
And
Is that your brother?
My youngest brother.
and
Yes.
was his
Okay.
youngest brother, yeah,
What's your middle brother's name?
Dan.
Dan.
Okay.
So John was named after my dad, John McFarland, who everybody
And
called Jim.
and that wasn't supposed to be my name. My name was supposed to be Alexander.
That's
But
right.
he snookered my mom in the last second from the story I've heard into calling me John.
Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I gotta tell you this again. Actually, with each child, their birth, there. I was in a different place. So for John, uh, basically, um, the young men went to a waiting room. Roe had an epidural, so she was kind of out of it. And I'm sitting in the waiting room, and Alexander was, I think I even picked the name Alexander. She agreed with it. But I'm thinking, it would really be nice uh, to name him after my dad. I didn't want him named after me, but I wanted him named after my dad. And so I said, maybe we could call him John Alexander. So we'll still keep that name. I like that name. And so she has John, and of course she's a little bit. It wasn't my intention to do this, but I just go and I say, hey, can we name him after my dad? No, we'll call him John Alexander. And she goes, okay. She never said that was a problem afterwards. So, it wasn't quite like John is making it out to be, but,
Well, that's the way I've been told. That's all I'm saying.
okay. Well, that's the factual truth.
That's the
Dan
wish though.
was named because
Dan?
John's favorite story, Christian story, was Daniel and the Lion's Den.
I was wondering if all of them were. Yeah. Okay.
Sam was named Samuel because Samuel means asked of God. He was the only one we prayed about having. These two guys were, more fun time.
Oh man, that's too funny.
But Samuel was, and that's why we called him Samuel. It means asked of God.
I like it.
So yeah, that's the names.
How did your time in hunting parks shape your faith, though?
Well, mostly it was through uh, Fleischman. That was the Baptist church. It's called Fleischman Memorial Baptist Church. It was actually founded way back, like in the 1800s, by a German missionary to the United States. How about that? And so, well, like I said, the very first time I heard the sermon, it impacted me, and um, we were. It was pretty much taught that um, you just didn't accept Jesus. Um, you actually lived out what the Bible said,
Yeah.
what
Right.
Jesus wanted, and that was kind of thrown in. Without going into a lot of the bar issue that I actually read a little bit about, that happened because we're having this problem bar that's a side street away from us, and some of the neighbors were um, getting antsy about it, and were talking about doing things that I didn't think were really going to help the situation out. And and I was praying to God, and I said, and this is part of questioning Him, where's your righteousness in this? Um, this is a bar that's dealing drugs, and all this kind of stuff is happening, and um, so I wound up leading this little group and shutting down this bar within 3 years. This is not me. I'm a low key person. I was afraid to do this. Um, some of the people were saying, "Oh, you need to go march," and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, if I have a bunch of people marching with me, how am I going to control them? No, there's no way I'm going to do this." Thankfully, God had put a neighbor across the street from me. Um, he was a Spanish Pentecostal, so he wasn't, kind of the same uh, part of the
Denomination.
faith that I was. Uh, Trying to figure out the word. Uh, but we got along real well, and we made this pact. Number one, if we saw any kids on the corner, we would call each other and we would chase them off, because we knew if any kids started going there in the city, if you get a bunch of kids on the corner, then they're going to stake that ass at the corner. And then if you got the gang in there, you're not going to get them out. Uh, and he was part of uh, the movement to try to get French dugout um, away, and so we prayed together. His name was Izzy. I still remember him vividly. He was a real friend, and that was a neat time. But that was part of my upbringing at Fleischman, and the church I go to, I still look on the foundations of what I learned at Fleischman, and if I see them different, I'll kind of make remarks about it. Well, do you think we should be doing this or that or whatever? And it's because of my upbringing at Fleischman. It gave me a solid foundation, and it gave me a solid foundation um, through his mom having a cancer, which whatever the whole I could do a whole thing on that, because that transformed what I already knew about God into another 180 degrees of knowing God more.
Yeah.
And it actually gave me a base for what I'm going through now. Uh, I've been sick for since January of 2024 with different stuff, and now I'm in a wheelchair. So
And I would like to take the last 10 minutes to talk about that period of your life, before we come to the closing segments. But
Now,
I
which
mean, you
part?
make it mom dying
Okay.
and your sickness, but you make it seem like it wasn't no big deal with the whole, like, we're talking about drug dealers weren't involved with this bar. Like, growing up in this neighborhood, there was when we first moved there, I think there was the OK Corral. There was this guy named Gary Heidnick, uh, who
Oh,
became
yeah.
nationally well, who killed a bunch of nurses who lived 4 blocks from us. Um, like, I had a knife pulled on me in that neighborhood. Like, my brother was thrown into a house by the neighbor Izzy, because there was a shootout. There was
Yeah,
a
you shoot
kid
up right in the
I
corner
can
with
remember a kid shot outside of our house on 4th of
our
July.
house was 3 houses from the corner, and they had a drug bust on the intersection right there. And
My goodness.
so Sam's playing outside, and this Izzy sees him, runs across the street, grabs him, and throws him in our house because they pulled out guns and everything.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
why.
I was
There was another time you're like this. There were going. I heard there was going to be a gang fight right by Frank's dugout. I called the fire department because I didn't know if the police would get there quick enough. The fire people get there real quick.
Yes, that's true.
And this is before cell phones, so they couldn't really trace the call. So I just called the fire department and said there's a fire. They came, and there was no gang fight.
but yeah, the neighborhood deteriorated very much. It was a bad neighborhood by the time we left. I mean, I was jumped numerous times. I was, um yeah, there was always something happening in that neighborhood. But we got 10 minutes before we need to start wrapping it up and doing stuff. I really want you to talk about, um mom and her death and her fight with cancer, because that is where faith became more than faith, I think, to you. Um, I think there's, they talk about belief and faith. Maybe there's like two different levels. There's like this. Okay, I speak like you. There's knowledge and knowing. Like there's two different levels. Like you can hear words, but until you understand words and have knowledge, the words are just words.
I
So
think there's
that's
3 forms of knowledge in the Greek language, and I
okay.
can't remember what
Oh,
book that came from, but
But there's the same in faith, I think. And so this is, I think,
well,
yeah, that's the Old
even
Testament.
in my growth, there were times I know that at Fleischman they talked about stuff that I didn't want to hear, and so I didn't hear it. Uh, there was probably stuff that I wasn't mature enough to hear, and so I didn't understand it. Um, so uh, there's a lot of in hearing and how much you get out of things. Um, that, but really, what started to happen is one of my one of my problems was um, I didn't like pain. I know nobody likes pain, but I wouldn't do things until I had to do them. I know if I needed something to get done and I thought it was a problem, it was like, okay, I'll get to it. But um, there are passages in the Bible that I would just skip over. If it talked about suffering, I would just read right past it. And then, so a year or 2 years, I can't remember what the thing before she was diagnosed with cancer, I would go to church and the pastor could speak on any topic. It didn't matter. All he had to use was the word suffering one time. And it decibly would go up 10 times. It would he would be yelling that word at me. If I listened to the radio and I happened to be listening to a guy speaking, on suffering, uh, as soon as that word came, it came out. So it took me a while to figure out what the heck was going on. And then I figured out God was getting my attention on it and that he wasn't pleased how I was dealing with suffering. And
He does that.
yeah, and it was preparing me for my wife getting cancer. I don't know how I let, and then I still needed 2 guys from my church to come over and help me through it. And so it was a very transformational time. And so one of the first thing it was, God was kind of telling me, you can't run from it. The second one is, well, you need to, not only do you need to face it, but when you see it coming, like uh, you don't have to be reactional. You need to be proactive in when you can see that. Um, and then another one was, and this one kind of was I really didn't like. Um, you may wind up suffering, and the primary benefit of your suffering may not be you; it may be for someone else. And
Yeah.
so these are the things that was happening. I was praying to God from the time that she got cancer for about a year, and I was saying, "You tell me that you cause all things for the good to those who love you. Bro loves you. I loves you. Where's the good?" You know? And I constantly went to him with that. One of the things I found out about the Psalms when I was reading them is that I was surprised that you actually could ask God. There was a sense before that I thought it was wrong to ask God, and I found out that it was just the opposite. He invites us to ask him. Okay, but when you ask him, you have to ask him with the right attitude. Um, uh, I'm not God, you are, so you know more than I do. I can't demand. I can ask, but I can't demand. So there are boundaries around that, how you do that. And I found out because of that, he reveals stuff. I know stuff now because of that. And I think sometimes, in James it says you don't have to because you don't ask. And it's not just about what you want, but God will reveal himself to you when you ask. And every time I asked, I said, look, I don't understand this. So I need to understand you more. Help me understand you more, you know? And because of it, I did, and which leads into uh, why I went to temple. I could have even went to temple as a chaplain, but not going there.
Be-
So
Before
it
you
was,
go, before you go into that, you asked a question though that I think a lot of people would want to ask God, and you didn't give us what He gave you as an answer, and that is, if I am good and she is good, and you cause all things for good, how is this good? So what was the answer that you accepted that
well,
you
eventually he said, "Hey, dummy, look at the next verse." And there's a whole bunch of, you know, predestination, kind of all kind of big words, but there's this little phrase in there, and it says, "I'm conforming you into the image of my son." That's the definition of his good. What he sees good is conforming us into the image of the son. And what's the image of the son? He sacrificed his love for us and he served others. And what's the greatest example of serving others, not only going to the cross, but as he's going to the Last Supper, he's washing the disciples' feet. He also washes Judas's feet. Okay? That's what service is. He tells you to love your enemies. He's on the cross. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do.
So,
This is what he wants us to do.
so we're gonna have to kind of wrap up there. Maybe we can have you back another time and you can talk about the second part because I think a lot of what you've learned in the second half of your life is important, or we can talk about it on our live when we do our live. But
Well,
I
but
want to ask you.
before we stop this, because you're on the show, I need you to know how difficult emotionally it was. Not only it was difficult in intellectually, it was difficult emotionally, um, spiritually, everything. I almost felt like I couldn't breathe the next breath because of how much grieving I was going through. And the reason why I say this is what needs to be restored is not only our intellect, not only our physical, our mental, but our emotional part. We need to give our tears over to God, and He needs to heal that. And anybody on here that is going through um, grieving because of some reason, that has to be part of the recovery of that. That's what I want to say.
Awesome. Before we get into our final two segments, I have one final question for you. And this question is because when I first started this podcast, you came to me and you were like, I would love to be a guest. And when I asked you why, you said, because I want to leave a legacy for you and your brothers.
Mhm.
So one of the questions I normally ask people as the final question is, what if you could go back in time when you go? I'm not asking that question to you. The question I'm asking to you is, what is the legacy? Because this, to me, this is what I felt like was your important part. What is the legacy you want to leave to your sons, to your grandchildren? Um, because this is one of the things I think is important on why you wanted to do this.
Uh, my faith. That's really it. It's my faith, and
So if Dan or Sam were sitting here in front of you today, along with me, what would you say to them about your faith?
oh, I thought I've already done it.
Okay.
Um,
I didn't know if there was
I
something
hope
extra.
before I do pass to the next to eternal life, uh, that they get a hold of that. Um, that to me, success in this world is really about having success in the faith. Um, so I mean, I'm happy for whatever success they get in this world that they can, but that's not going to put them into the next world. And
And that is the
and
opposite.
and not only that, the families as well. So that extends out from them to their families.
And that is exactly the opposite of what the world teaches, right?
Right.
That success in this world means everything. It's a great legacy to leave. Um, so that's going to bring us to our final two segments. Our first segment is called Key Takeaways.
Key takeaways.
I think that my key takeaway is that God wants to hear your grief too. Um, that one landed with me. I mean, I know that, but we don't do that as humans very often. Surely not often enough if we do, because we tend to rely on our own strength and our own will to accomplish things. But I've said it before, I'll say it again. The same way that I see my little kids that are little tiny babies running around and helpless and need my constant care and supervision is how God sees us. And when we do this, like my son's favorite saying is "my do it," and it's just like "my do it, my do it." I want to do it, and it's like you try to let him do it, and he gets frustrated and bent out of shape, and you're like, "Okay, are you ready for my help now, babe? Like, can I help you?" And he finally like, "Oh, okay, whatever. Like, do it, mom." And that's just like the type of love that God sees us with is like he'll let us, kick and scream and throw a fit, and it's like, "Are you ready for my help?" But that's how he wants us to come to him, is like willing and "Daddy, help me."
Yes, we're his kids.
Mhm.
And so, there was one time, I can't remember which one I was yelling at. Um, but after I got done yelling and he left, it's kind of like it came to me. Well, I was displeased with them, and I guess I displeased you, God, sometimes. And so it came back on me. Yeah, it's. I actually think that you know God's a genius anyway. Uh, he made the family to reflect the family that we're in with him. And so what you want from your children, he wants from you. You want your children to come to you with problems. He wants us to come to him with problems, not stay away from them, not be scared of them.
It's you, Philly.
That was awesome, Sydney. For me, I'm gonna go slightly different. You have, Dad, you have a painting at the bottom of your steps to your upstairs. Do you know what painting I'm referring to? Okay, it's a picture of you and Mom, your wedding picture. A- And it's the painting is
Oh
it's just
yeah, now I
dots.
remember. Yeah, it's
It's
done by
just
Winnie.
dots. It was done by a person in our church, yeah. But it's just dots.
Yes.
And so the farther away you are from the picture, it looks like a picture. The closer you get, you see the dots. And this has been really, it's funny because I don't know how much I've talked about this around you, but I talk about this picture to everybody or a lot of people. I know I've said it at least once or twice on this podcast. Um, it is actually a life motto of mine, that painting, because what I believe is that, and I think it reflects your story too. So this is why it's my key takeaway. But that each moment in time is a dot. And so what happens is we reflect on that dot. And some of the dots are red, some of the dots are blue, some of the dots are green. Green could be a very good day in your life. Blue could be a neutral day in your life. Red could be one of those painful moments. The death of a spouse, the death of, a child. Um, And what happens is because we're in that moment, we're focused on that red dot. But God is seeing the complete picture. And he's seeing that red dot, that pain that you're going through is actually the accent that brings the picture together. Like if you were missing that red dot, the picture would not be as beautiful as it is. But because we're in the pain, we're in that moment, we're focused on that moment and we're not seeing the bigger picture. And to me, it's when I'm going through those red dot times in my life, I reflect on the painting and it reminds me that there's a greater, bigger picture that God sees. And the reason why, when you ask, I am good, she is good, how is this good for me? It's because you're focused on that dot and you're not seeing the big picture. And when you zoom out and you see the picture and you're like, wow, that dot, that one dot right there that I'm questioning is the dot that brought the whole painting together. And so um there's been many dots in my dad's life, that have shaped and developed that picture. And so I just encourage our audience, I encourage people all the time that if you're in that red dot moment, appreciate it because it could be the accent of your whole life. You just don't realize it because the red painting, the red dot is the hardest dot that there is. But that's my key takeaway.
Well, the red dot is where God does get your attention.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The red dot is where God gets your attention. That's what he's doing. He's getting your attention.
And if you had one thing, I know John's question was legacy for, your point on being on here, but if you had one key thing that you wanted our viewers to take away from today's episode, what would you want that to be?
Probably don't be afraid to ask God but you don't understand. And do it in a way that you honor him. You don't demand. You know who he is, and you know who you're not. Yeah.
But just remember, if you ask him that question, you got to be
Ready for the answer.
ready for the answer. And
Well,
even if you don't,
the answer could be, I'm not going to tell you. The answer could be, later. Somebody said to me not recently, sometimes he answers before you ask. Sometimes he answers while you're asking, and sometimes he answers afterward.
Yeah.
yeah. And I've heard that one of the other really big ones when answering God is like he answers yes, no, or not yet, or not now, So, but I love that. And that's going to bring us to our final segment.
The final five.
And the first question is, I started out saying that you are one of my heroes. Who is your hero and why?
But it would depend on, I guess, time. I have different times in my life that are different heroes. And so for right now, there's a man called Gene. He lives in the Roxborough area. And he's kind of like my mentor. He, I don't know how many men this guy has mentored. He has an organization that he calls On the Street Church. He walks down the street and talks to anybody. That's his church about God. And so right now, he's my hero. If he were, at one time, Jim Conti was.
Uh, good heroes push us in good directions, correct?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
The next question for you is going to be, if someone is listening right now and feels either overlooked or abandoned or is struggling with anger, you probably know this from lived experience, but sometimes it can be hard to pray to God when you're struggling, especially with anger. What would your encouragement to them be to take that step towards asking God?
Well, I think one of the things they need now, if you're a man, you need another man that you can go to help you in those times. That can call you, one who's not afraid to call you when you need to be called upon. And the same thing for a woman. I really do think um, it works better when the same sex is mentoring the because they can help direct you in the right place. So yeah, that's what I understand. And for me, this June is that guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. The next question is, what is either one book, one song, one verse, one quote, something that's impacted you, something that's been a life motto of yours? What what is that? What would you refer to, and why?
There's a song called Blessings by
Elevation worship.
what? No. Well, I don't know. They might have done it. It was written by, and I heard it sung by, Laurie Story, what I mean. And it's basically saying, maybe the
Okay.
teardrops that you go through, the things that aren't going your way, are really blessings in disguise.
Mm, yeah.
That's the theme of the song.
I think
Yeah.
that's been covered by a few people. I know what song you're talking about, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's kind of, yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of songs that do have that's the end that comes to
That's
mind.
love it. Next question for you is going to be, if your entire testimony could be summed up in a message to our listeners in a few sentences, what would you say?
Well, I think the main part of my message is that God is with you even when you're not with Him. And I was, when I finally realized that, it amazed me that God took care of me. I really didn't come to really the knowledge that I needed God until I was 25, 26 or something like that. That's, so all that time, God was still watching over me and prodding me to come to Him. I did nothing to do that,
Yeah.
Mm. And the final question is, if you could have a conversation and a cup of coffee with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
It might be Barnabas. And the reason Barnabas is, um, he just was able to have faith in people that other people wanted. He's the one that, they were afraid of Paul at first, and he took them by the hand. Um, and as you look at Barnabas all through, that's what you see. This guy, I don't know, what was it? His nephew or something, Luke, went along the way. I forget who Luke was in relationship to him, but he, Paul didn't like what he was doing, and so they actually split because of that. Because he's saying, I'm putting faith in this young man. Paul, you just don't have enough patience with him, and so he'd be a real interesting man to sit down at, as far as I'm concerned.
And Albert came in and filled in for us today, but John, I'm tempted to say anybody that wants to reach out to him. Are we connecting on Facebook, or are they connecting through the Common Ground? What do we want to do with?
Well, that's up to him.
If viewers want to connect with you and reach out to you about your testimony, hear more about your story, where would you like them to go?
Okay, now you have to get this right because people get it wrong.
Okay.
It's ACF, as in Albert Charles Fletcher.
Okay.
Owls, OWLS. So it's ACF OWLS, not AC Fouls.
Okay, got it. We
Okay.
can put that. I'll type it out for people.
ACF Owls at Comcast.net. That's my email.
All right, we'll type it out.
That's the best way. Everybody always says, "Oh, AC Fouls." No.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, and what a great episode. When we take the time to hear somebody's story, it gives us an opportunity to find common ground. Thank you, Albert, for being our guest today. For Sydney and myself, it has been our pleasure being your host, and you have been listening to the Common Ground podcast. God bless and good night.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground podcast.
Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.